Too many people find that even when they sit down with the intention of doing work, they find themselves distracted soon after, watching, scrolling, playing, or even eating something. This can be detrimental to productivity as well as self-worth, so it's really important to know that it isn't all your fault. And there are some less known but really effective strategies you can use to stop procrastination and find motivation. Good morning. Today I'll be showing some strategies that helped me and many others to stay motivated to work or study throughout the day. I'm going to firstly go through the causes of distraction and then give some specific tips. The causes are really important, but if you just want those tips, you can skip through the first couple minutes of the video. I'll be upfront with the fact I've never struggled a lot with distraction. I've struggled with a lot of things. Motivation just isn't one of them. I noticed during high school that this was uncommon, but I also noticed I had uncommon habits. I've recently done some research into these habits and I found that there is science behind them that a growing number of people are taking advantage of. Let's firstly take a look at what causes this horrible inability to focus, even when we really want to. Obviously, I am not a scientist. I've just done a bunch of research. So I'll just outline some facts. While everybody is different, we are all biologically motivated by dopamine, which is a complex neurotransmitter and it does a lot of things, including make us feel good and make us desire things which cause it to be released. Dopamine is released by all kinds of things, from having breakfast, going on a run and giving your friend a hug, to really dopamine intensive activities such as eating a whole block of chocolate, watching a super visually and auditorily engaging TV show, getting into a new relationship, as well as many other things relating to addiction, but yeah, let's just keep it PG. In particular, we're the first generation to grow up with technology and media that is specifically designed to constantly be elevating dopamine. By design, videos need to be more scandalous or funny or scary, with better and better production and audio to keep us interested. Each social media platform is carefully designed to trigger dopamine, so we will keep coming back. And the same thing is true with online gaming. Don't get me wrong, I think all these things are amazing in moderation. And I generally believe that the pros outweigh the cons. It's just important to understand that these activities release high levels of dopamine because it affects a process called homeostasis. Homeostasis is basically the body's strive to maintain balance, and we see it in the body's ability to sweat when we're hot to cool us down, and also to shiver when we're cold to warm us up. But homeostasis also manifests in tolerance. We can see this in increasing fitness, in strength training, and in increasing alcohol tolerance. And it's the same with dopamine. When you consistently expose yourself to high dopamine activities, these high levels become the new normal. And low dopamine activities can no longer interest you. Not only are you not interested by low dopamine activities, but you also need to keep increasing the amount of time you spend on high dopamine activities to maintain the same amount of pleasure. Another way to think about it is that the human brain views things relatively. For example, if I gave you a bowl of rice and you had been stranded on a desert island for 3 days, you would be very happy with that bowl of rice. But if I gave you the same bowl of rice at a chocolate buffet, you would not be interested in it. That's just because the rice completely loses its relative appeal when compared to chocolate, which is an even more dopamine-inducing food. However, there are ways to regain those healthy dopamine levels so you can find focus and even enjoyment in the important low dopamine tasks. A lot of people talk about a dopamine detox, which I'll explain how to do, but I'm also going to give everyday tips you can use so you don't need to do a full detox if you don't feel like you need one. A dopamine detox is basically just setting out a period of time where you avoid high dopamine activities. I recommend this if you feel like you've been in a real rut. If you feel like you have really low self-control right now and you're having these persistent feelings of emptiness or lack of fulfillment, a dopamine detox can help. This strategy is also really powerful if you've just gone through a really exciting period of time and now you need to knuckle down and do some work. To take an Australian example, A lot of Year 12 students actually graduate before they sit their final exams. And this just means that we get to do all the celebrations when we graduate, like muck-up days and graduation ceremonies and formals and like after parties. And then after all that, we have to sit down for 3 weeks straight and study for the most important exams of our life. After all that, it can be really hard to concentrate, so a dopamine detox at that point in time might be worthwhile. This can be a day or 2 days or a day a week, depending on you. During this time, you have to try and avoid screens, music, high dopamine foods, so like foods high in sugar or sodium, and any other high dopamine personal pleasures. It's quite normal to feel bored and maybe upset. This is just because it's like a mini withdrawal. Things can get a little worse before they get better when it comes to the dopamine receptors recovering. What you can do during a dopamine detox is reflect, you can journal, meditate, and exercise. These activities trigger other feel-good neurotransmitters like endorphins, serotonin, GABA. These ones allow you to enjoy the present moment rather than desire something. Rather than a hard detox, maybe you decide to use this day or a couple days to just limit your particular dopamine crux. So if that is for you, the For You page on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, you just decide that day, I'm not going to do it. Now, once you've done that, or if you feel like you don't want to become a Buddhist monk for a day, here are the daily habits that help to normalize dopamine so you can stay focused for as long as possible during the day. Basically, these habits focus on pushing high dopamine activities later into the day. The longer you keep your dopamine levels low, the easier it will be to concentrate on work. Number 1, don't go on your phone in the morning. This absolutely elevates your dopamine levels and makes everything else you need to do in the rest of the day a lot more boring. This is also the reason a lot of people say, start work in the morning, or nothing productive happens when you start too late in the day. It's also the reason a lot of people work out in the morning. So don't stay in bed on your phone. Number 2, don't listen to your favorite music in the morning. I know this is a weird one, but I stand by it. Save your favorite music for later in the day. Try a relaxing playlist or something without lyrics. Music is a really big dopamine high that a lot of people forget about. This means if you've successfully started studying and avoided TikTok and Instagram, but you constantly find yourself going back to Spotify to find the perfect playlist to do your work, you are still elevating your dopamine. Number 3, eat mindfully. During the day when you have a meal or a snack, sit down and eat it and don't do anything else. A lot of people feel the need to watch something when they eat, which is completely fine. But on days where you want to be productive, getting that dopamine hit of watching a TV show or YouTube while you're having lunch can make it really difficult to get back into work after the break. This style of eating is called mindful eating, and it means just basically focusing on the way the food tastes, the texture, how it smells, how it looks. It has a bunch of other benefits, including more enjoyment of the food, more conscious consumption, meaning you're less likely to make those unhealthy choices during stressful periods, and generally grounding you in the present moment, like all mindful and meditative activities. If you really can't just eat, try listening to something like a relaxing playlist or an intelligent podcast, or what I did was I would make voice recordings of me reading out my notes and I would play them while I was eating. When I was eating alone, I wasn't like playing them at the dinner table. Yes, mindful eating. Number 4, don't text them until the evening. You know who they are, I know who they are, and many people have a bunch of thems going on at one time. And when they pop up on your phone, nothing is going to hold your concentration until you've read the contents of that message. Obviously, if you're in a steady relationship, don't ignore them. I'm more talking about new relationships or the talking phase. The Australian final exams are so intense, I would say actively try and avoid starting something with someone. But I did know a bunch of people in really supportive relationships that were beneficial, but I also knew a bunch of people that were in really distracting relationships. Just be careful with that dopamine high and make sure that you're answering them later in the day. Use high dopamine activities as a reward for completing hard work in the evening, but do it carefully. This means at the end of the day when you're getting tired and you just need to finish that thing, tell yourself, when this is done, I'll take a break. Maybe to watch that TV show or film, or to just scroll. If you can't have a healthy relationship with a certain TV show, or for example like the For You page or a video game, be mindful of that and consider cutting it out for a while. The big mistake people make is giving themselves these high dopamine breaks too early in the day. The breaks you should take during the day should basically only be to eat, to exercise, to play with a pet, to maybe call someone, and those type of things. So those are the 5 habits, and I know that they are really painful to hear, but trust me, they are so powerful in normalizing dopamine and maintaining concentration. I actually made this video after talking to my little sister about these things, trying to help her stop procrastinating and be really productive. And she pointed out to me that these things are very hard. You're not going to be able to do all these things straight away. It's just about making sure that today is a little better than yesterday, and it does get easier over time. As a general tip, mindfulness is the key to normalizing dopamine. I know I spoke about mindful eating, but other mindful habits are so important. I personally credit Thich Nhat Hanh's audiobooks with helping me to get through the most stressful periods of my life. He's a Vietnamese Zen monk, but there are a bunch of other resources out there that are more accessible than listening to a Buddhist monk. Alright, so firstly, we've looked at high dopamine levels as the absolute killer of motivation to do hard work. Secondly, we've talked about dopamine detoxing as a way to reset your focus, and also some daily habits which can normalize dopamine and maintain concentration throughout the day. Let me know if you have any thoughts, and I hope this helped.